Hedgehog and welcome to Inktoberfest 2018. We are on day 3. Yesterday was our first day of tutorials and we learned all about distress inks and the different items in the distress range. And today we're going to learn all about distress oxides and how they're different from these original pads. So I have both pads here set out and you can see, so I'm going to open that regular distress ink. So this is the Lucky Clover. You can see it's a pretty green colour. It's that clover colour, but then when I open this distress oxide, and you'll know that they're oxides not only by the label, but by this sort of grey silver casing that they come in. Look how bright that is in comparison. So you can already, before you start doing anything with the inks, you can see that difference. And I want to take a stencil and I want to use half in regular distress and I want to use half in oxides, just so that you can see the difference between them. Let's take our Christmas tree. As I said, we may create more than one stencil each day. We will just create as many things as we learn. So I'm going to put my stencil down here. I'm just going to pop a little bit of tape on it, but maybe I won't pop any tape on it because it's not to hand. So again, I'm going to use different blending tools, one for my distress ink and then one for my oxide. So I'm just going to put just a little bit of colour down. So I'm going to put it on this top piece here. And then I'm going to change foam. And I'm going to pick this up. And now I'm going to put down my distress oxide. So this is the same colour, just in two different formulations. And you can mark on your paper which is which. And then I'm going to explain the difference to you. But I wanted to kind of demonstrate them first of all. So here you are. So you can see that this top one is more translucent. It's a slightly sort of different shade, whereas this bottom one is much creamier. It's far more opaque as well, and it's going to react differently to water too. So if you do that same test as we did yesterday, and I'm going to spritz both lightly, and I'm going to grab my heat tool, and I'm going to heat, and I just put that tag over it so I have half that's wet, half that's dry. And we are going to do a more solid tag, so you'll be able to see the differences even more. But you can see that I've spritzed them both the same, and you've got a completely different reaction between them. This one, not only does it just react with water, it oxidizes. It gives you that chalky kind of finish to it. Whereas this one just gives you that distress reaction, which is also pretty. But they're very different pads. So the distress oxide, lots of people call it a hybrid pad. It is not a hybrid pad. It's a distress a dye and pigment fusion. So it has dye ink in it and it has pigment ink in it, and that's why the distress oxides don't come in those small ink cubes, and they never will, just because the chemical reaction between the dye and the pigment needs a larger surface area to work on. So it has a little bit of the qualities of both, so you kind of get the best of both worlds, and by that I mean you can use this to blend with. So this is my oxide here. And so I'm going to start blending some colour on. And you can work on that distress stamping paper, but you can see this is a really creamy piece here. So I'm just going to do this corner. And again, you can save these videos. We are adding them to a playlist, so you can subscribe to that playlist. We're also, we'll have them on the blog. And of course, you're going to create these tags and you can write your notes and things on there. And I'm just going to spritz this with water, let it react. Let it oxidize, and then I'm just going to give it that quick heat dry. So we're going to build up lots of techniques on this tag. And I'll lift this up so you can see that beautiful reaction on there. Now the thing is, because it's got a pigment in it, it's going to work on darker cardstocks, but there are a couple of tips you're going to want to go through to learn that. So let's start blending on our dark cardstock. So you can see it already starts showing up, but some of it, because it's that pigment and dye fusion, some of it is going to soak into the cardstock. So if you now go in, once that dye has soaked in, and you put a second layer of distress oxide over the top, that pigment sits on top of the pigment, and so you can build up some really, really bright colours on here. And this is just regular black cardstock, nothing special. and it's going to stay wetter for longer, so you can emboss on it. So it does have that property of a pigment ink. But you can see there how we started to get those beautiful colours come together. I'm going to do some smooshing. So let me grab my Easy Clean mat. And the Easy Clean mats, a couple of you asked, they go glossy side down. That's the silicone side down. You can work either way. You'll find you get a better result working this way. So let's choose some of my favourite colours. So far we have one more release of Distress Oxides to go before we have all 60 colours, but we have the majority of them. I'm going to start with some Picked Raspberry, some Mermaid Lagoon, and so you can see already they're just a different vibrancy. They have a chalky feel, they have a more pigmenty feel to them. And I'm going to add in some Twisted Citron. Now, we're going to spritz that with some water. And we're going to put our tag in. We're going to have some interesting colours come out. Not a colour combination I kind of would tend to do, but I watched Tim do something similar and I want to leave that blended piece in there. So I'm now going to dry this. Again, that Reinker Heat It tool. And so you can see they're drying out and they still have that intense vibrancy, which is something I really love about Distress Oxides. You can also see they have that chalky feel to them. I could now add water and get them to react, but I'm going to add a few more layers. And when we did it yesterday, you'll remember I mentioned how when you add layers, the regular distress pads always react. With Oxides, because they have some of that pigment in them, you can layer them up. So where here I have a blank piece, or here I think it's gone a bit muddy, I can add more colours in. So I can go here and I can pick up some blue on top. I can go here and I can pick up some of those fun pinks and greens. And I can go in here. And so you can kind of pick up different pieces. Look how this is coming together. Now if I was to put a regular distress pad on black, I'm not going to see it. It's barely going to leave a watermark because it's a dye-based pad. And I'll show you that in a second. I'll put a little bit in the corner so you can see the difference. And again, you can write on there the difference between the pads. And the reason we did this, where you built up a tag every single day, was so that at the end of your month, you can write on there day by day. So you can always refer back to the video that you might want to work on. But also, you have sort of a quick reference guide that you can keep next to you as well whilst you're crafting. So I'm going to take this. Let's just grab that Lucky Clover regular distress, and I will just cut this down and punch a hole in it to make it a tag. So you can see there, all it's done is just created a little dark patch in the corner. I'll lift it up for you. So you don't get anything. You only get that wonderful vibrancy with those Distress Oxides because they have pigment in them. And now something else we can do is if I pull out one of Tim's newer stencils, which are really, really fun. So I group these in sets because that's how I buy them. And I want to pick out one of these new switcher stencils. Now you can leave it on the ring, or for this one I'm going to pull it out. A tip that Tim gave us, and I haven't done it on mine yet, is if I lift this tag up, it's got little grooves in it, and we're going to use those grooves in a minute, but if you add some black acrylic paint and then just wipe it straight off, it picks up in those grooves, and he says they're easier to see. So that's something you can do at home if you wanted to. I'm going to keep with my Lucky Clover, and I'm going to work with some Wilted Violet. So this might not be the best colour combination, but I just want to show you the difference as well. And I want to talk about Distress Oxide Reinkers too. So we're going to put our stencil down like this. And we're going to rub our purple in exactly the same as we always do. And with this one, I kind of tend to go up and down because I don't want my ink to go underneath in any way. But this is great because it creates stripes. There's one that creates trees. There's one that creates stars. And you are going to love these stencils. And they come in the small size and the large size. I'll link all of those things, of course, for you in that video description. Don't forget that Tonic will also have a special coupon code for you today, as they will every single day throughout the event. And do check out Reinker's website as well. They have some fantastic things. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this, could do with a clean really, but I haven't got any tissues next to me, and I'm not allowed to stand up today. I have a little bit of an injury. So what I'm doing is I am lining up that white space that I had. So here's where I just inked. And now I'm going to the side. So that white space is in between. And I can see, it's a little bit hard because I can't hold it up, but I can see those purple stripes through this piece here. And then what I can do is take my lucky Clover. You could, of course, choose a different colour. You could choose Distress, because you can put Distress over the Oxides. And I'm just swiping on this one because I don't want the stripes to move. And then I'll show you how cool this is when we've finished. So you can see there, I have those perfect stripes, and I can keep moving it and filling in different areas. I can do it crisscross. And then, as I mentioned, there's in the same here, oops, let's do up my book ring a bit better. So I have stars, and they have that little star in between. I have some others. I have trees that do the same thing. I have some other ones. Let's just scroll through my piece here. Let's grab my big ones. And then on my big ones, I write the name on there. So if I'm linking up, or I want to be able to tell someone, maybe someone asked me what that tells. And plus, of course, when I'm creating, you can see what I'm using. And I just find that that makes it a little bit easier. So I do have the larger ones in here as well. So there's the stars in the large. There's the stripes in the large. Trees. We have Harlequin, and you've got those in betweens, and you can fill in 1, 2, 3, or 4, depending on how many times you move it. You have polka dots that again you can fill in. You have shifter stripes as well. And obviously, of course, we will link up everything in that description for you. You can also use your brushes with your Distress Oxides. So if you're a stencil brush person, let's add a little bit of texture to this one. So I'm going to put my lucky Clover back. I'm going to pick out some Salty Ocean. It's one of my favourite blues. This is one of my stencil brushes. You can use your Distress brushes. Again, not recommended to mix the Oxides with the Distress inks on the same brush. Give it a rinse or something in between, and you'll find then you don't kind of contaminate whatever your project is. You're not going to contaminate the pads necessarily, but you could contaminate that project. So again, I can put them through a stencil, creamier, chalkier, lots of different things. And of course you can stamp with them, as you know, what we buy them for is ink pads. So I can spritz, I can reactivate, or I can just oxidize. I'm going to just give this a quick dry. I also have a really fun technique with the Oxides that we're going to use with the microglaze, and you're absolutely going to love the technique that we're going to show you with that. You'll also see how they kind of just soften that little bit as well, and you really bring out that kind of oxide chalkiness when you activate them with water, even more so. So you can emboss with them, you can stamp with them, you can blend with them, you can layer them, which is the best bit. And I just love how they also work on dark cardstock. And you could either just cut this piece and tap a hole in the top, you could cut it and put it on the back or on a tag and write your notes, however you want to keep track of your projects for the month. But I'm now going to just stamp something over the top to finish it off. I'm going to use the Inventor 4, which is a Halloween inventor. And I'm going to go with the pumpkins. And I'm going to use my stamp platform, because I just don't have any blocks to hand. And so I'm just going to pop this off the side. So we've covered lots and lots of different techniques in this. Stamping with rubber, so I'm going to pull out that foam piece. And I am going to use some ground espresso. So if you didn't know, Tim's favourite colour is brown, which is why we have lots of browns in the Distress range. And these colours are exactly the same as the regular Distress inks. So I'm just inking up my stamp, and I'm going to stamp it down. And the one thing about the fact that it's rubber, not photopolymer, is it's not going to pick up your tag and take it with it. So you can see there how I've done that. I could add extra pieces, I could now emboss that, I could create different effects, ombre effects, I can spritz it and get the colours to move. And I can also layer it to get more and more intense stamping. So if I stamp it a second time, it gets a little bit darker. If I stamp it a third time, it's going to get even darker again. So you can see there how you can kind of build up those layers. I could throw some embossing powder on, I could throw some distress glitter on. There's just so many different things I could do with these supplies. And I keep a craft mat inside my MISTI because it makes it easy to clean up. And like now, when I'm not going to clean a stamp, I close it up. I'm not doing any damage. I just wipe that clean later on when I get to cleaning. So that's another option we have. What else can we add? So Distress Oxide Reinkers. So they come in these cute little bottles, alcohol ink size bottles. Now what you'll notice is there's a darker piece here in the bottom compared to this lighter liquid on top. This is the pigment that settles in the bottom. This is the dye that's on top. So when you want to start working with the reinkers, you want to shake, and there is a metal ball inside, which hopefully you can hear. So that's the vintage photo. You can see the same on the iced spruce. Start shaking, that metal ball will come loose. You just shake for a couple of seconds to combine those two back together again, and that's when you get back to your oxide. Now the reinkers are also, of course, they're great to reink your pads with. There's also a Distress Refresher, which we'll get to in a few days' time. They're also fab to paint with. So something I did in a tutorial last year was I took some reinker. I had black cardstock at the time. I stamped out an image, I'd white embossed it, and then I took a paintbrush and I started painting. Because look how thick and creamy they are. So they're great paints. They're not an acrylic paint. They're a water-based, water-activated. I can still do all those distress techniques. But what you're going to notice is as these dry, they start to sink into that cardstock. And that's exactly the same as when we were blending on this black cardstock. So if you want a more intense option, just give it a second coat. You could, of course, paint through a stencil. So if you had something super fine and you wanted to do different areas. Let's pick this one out here. This is from set 27. Everything I use in these videos are also linked in that video description for you, so you can find it anytime super, super easily. So if you just wanted to do each stripe slightly different, you can do that with your stencil. You want to be super fine with it, a little bit heavy handed there, but again, something else you can do. If it goes wrong, it was meant to be a solid area. And then you take a Distress Oxide on a blending tool or on a brush and you layer it over the top. You can take with your blending tool, and of course this is the wrong colour, I'm going to mix, but you can also pick up some of that, and again you're going to get a thicker coat. Here I'm blending two colours together, but it's actually making a really pretty colour. This is the Ice Spruce and Lucky Clover. Look how pretty that green looks there on black. So these are a really versatile pad. I absolutely love this distress range. I was super excited when I got to do the videos for this. As I say, don't forget to check out the Tonic website. On the Hedgehog Hollow blog, linked in that description below, alongside all of your supplies, there is a Tonic coupon as well. Plus, check out the Reinker Ink website. There's so much to this distress range. Papers and sprays and all sorts of fun things. Plus, of course, there's Diane's range, there's Dina's range, there's Wendy's range, there's lots of other things there as well. So, don't forget to join us again for day 4 of Inktoberfest tomorrow. Make sure you link up your designs and use that hashtag Inktoberfest 2018. We'll see you again very soon. Happy stamping! Bye!